Overseas now, and US President Donald Trump says he's taking a wait-and-see approach over whether to intervene in Iran's escalating anti-government protests. Yesterday, Iran closed its airspace for several hours as tensions flared with the US, while reports put the death toll associated with the protests at 2,600. But with an internet blackout in place, only scant details about what is happening on the ground are emerging via the Elon Musk-owned internet satellite, Starlink. Joining us now is geopolitical analyst Dr. Jeffrey Miller. Morena, Jeffrey.
Good morning, Lauren.
Thanks for being with us this morning. Can you get us up to speed on the latest, including whether any US action is likely?
Well, look, we do seem to be in a bit of a holding pattern at the moment. Everything seemed to be in place yesterday for a US strike. As you mentioned in your intro, the Iranian airspace was cleared completely. You were seeing similar movements to what had happened back in June of 2025 before those US strikes on Iran, on the Iranian nuclear program back then. So the United States was evacuating personnel, non-essential personnel and equipment from its bases in the Gulf, for example, the Al Udeid base in Doha in Qatar. And obviously foreign embassies had told their staff to stay home and had evacuated their nationals or to advise their nationals to leave Iran. So we had a very similar situation, but then it seemed at the last minute Donald Trump decided against it. He seemed to back away a little bit, said that the killing had stopped and that an execution planned for yesterday would not take place. He's followed that up just in the last few hours, saying it's good news that that execution wouldn't happen. But I don't think it's accurate to say that everything's off at this point. There is a US carrier strike group, the Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier. It's on its way from the South China Sea to the Middle East, and war deception and surprise is always a very, very important element. So Donald Trump talked about diplomacy last year, and then a couple of days later he conducted those strikes. So anything could happen. It could be days away, could be weeks away. Maybe it will not eventuate. Donald Trump is very difficult to read, isn't he?
He is indeed. And of course, it has been tricky to build a picture of what's happening in Iran, given the internet and phone access has been cut. I mean, Donald Trump says he has it on good authority that the killings have stopped, but indeed it's hard to understand exactly what is going on. Where is that blackout at now? How are we getting information about what's going on?
Well, it's been in place for a full week now as of this morning, so 7 days really where internet access has been heavily restricted out of Iran. And the only ways really that information is trickling out is through the Starlink systems. And apparently around 50,000 terminals in Iran. If you go back to 2022, which was during the last wave of protests in Iran over the killing of Mahsa Amini, you had an order by Joe Biden, then the US president, authorizing US companies to provide communications equipment to Iran. And so that then started quite a lot of terminals coming into the country, but it's still a very small number. Iran is a very big country. 50,000 is a very small number, and it's absolutely illegal in Iran to use one of these terminals, to be found with it. And if you are found with one of these terminals, you will be arrested and imprisoned, subject to quite severe punishment. So you can see why it is difficult to get information out of Iran at the moment.
Yeah, who's more likely to have their hands on those Starlinks if they are, difficult to get and, as you say, illegal?
Well, it seems to be mainly in the upper classes, as you would expect. These terminals are not cheap. Activists, to some degree, probably have got hold of them. But it tends to be in the bigger cities, in Tehran, the capital, other bigger cities, perhaps. So information from elsewhere in Iran, and this protest is really encompassing the whole of Iran. There seem to be protests in all kinds of quite smaller places that have not typically been affected by protests. Information has got to get from there to someone with a terminal and then get out to the outside world, either to the Iranian diaspora, to journalists, to others. And then that information really has to be verified. And of course, these days with the internet, there are an awful lot of fakes and so on, and old videos circulating. So this explains why it's just so difficult to get independent, verified information out of Iran. It's basically impossible at this stage.
And just briefly, Jeffrey, SpaceX and Starlink is obviously owned by Elon Musk. He seems to be back on side with the president at the moment. Just how dangerous is it to be relying on Starlink and on someone like Elon Musk and such hefty US power?
Well, at the moment, Elon Musk, it's in his interest perhaps for this information to come out of Iran. This is perhaps a cause that he's more supportive of. But we have seen situations in the past, notably in Ukraine back in 2022. There was a Reuters investigation last year that showed that Elon Musk had given the order to turn off Starlink over part of Ukraine during a Ukrainian counter-offensive there because he didn't want to see an escalation, apparently. He does hold a lot of power at the moment because Starlink is really the only really usable satellite system like this at the moment. There are others, but they're just at they're not really at that level that Starlink is at the moment. But there's a European system, Eutelsat one. There's an Amazon-backed system. There's a Chinese-backed system, and we'll probably see more of these come online in the coming years, and there'll be some competition for Starlink. But at the moment, Starlink really is the only game in town, and it's certainly got that first mover advantage when it comes to this kind of satellite communication system that is usable at this scale and is usable by fairly lay users with just one of these base terminals.